So, Gilberto, on Friday we will premiere your piece, Methinks. It looks like a weasel. Um, why this title?
So this title is it's a funny one. So it's actually a citation from it's a passage of Hamlet actually. So there's this dialogue of Hamlet while he's pretending to be going insane, and so he's pointing at the clouds and he's seeing these animals in the clouds. And every time that the servant is agreeing with him about what animal the cloud looks like. So Hamlet just plays with him and keeps changing the name of the animals. So he talks that the clouds look like a whale and then it looks like a weasel. And so there is this poetic thing of the animals morphing in the sky as you look at them. But it has been used as the name of an algorithm that does something very similar to the algorithm I used in the piece. So there was a documentary by Richard Dawkins that he used as an algorithm that he named Methinks. It is like a weasel that implements some of these ideas, and he used to show how a very simple principles of evolution can be used to produce this sort of results. And so I just thought it was a very poetic nudge to to this idea of seeing these animals changing in the clouds and slowly morphing, and still making a nudge to the sort of algorithm that I use.
Yeah, okay, you just mentioned it. It's again an algorithmic piece, and it's a genetic algorithm you're using this time. It's funny, when I read your booklet text, you're writing about the changing of the genetic code we have with every sexual next generation, and about sudden mutations, and that a mutant can become dominant in a certain species. This is what we're living in right now with Corona.
Exactly.
Exactly. That is dominant all of a sudden. Did you think about that while composing, or is it mere coincidence?
So it is not exactly what was in my mind while composing. I actually wanted to write this piece for a long time. So I had this idea on my notes with the title for many, many years already. So actually it predates the idea, the whole Corona situation. But once I started to work, of course, this parallel became clear. So the idea is it's just very similar to what is happening with coronavirus, that the viruses go through these random mutations. Most of them, it's actually something that makes the virus less likely to survive, and it just dies off. But the few ones that are beneficial, they can become dominant, and then they spread better, they reproduce more, faster, etc. And it's very interesting that you see this in this sort of simulated algorithmic life. And I just find it very fascinating that it is exactly the same principles appear in the computer simulation.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, it's because it's a virus, Corona is a virus, the mutations go so fast because the generations are rather short.
Yes.
Short. They are even shorter in your piece, of course, but it struck me when I read this. Yes.
No, absolutely. So the piece uses this principle of sexual reproduction. So the algorithm is always selecting two parents for each one of the offsprings, and then it's getting half of the genetic code of one of the parents and half of the other. So just like the chromosomes of an embryo. And then the mutations happen afterwards. So of course, in the case of the viruses, they do not reproduce sexually. So it's just an identical copy plus the mutations. But the principles are pretty much the same with the mutations.
Do you think it will be possible, while listening to your piece for the first time, as the audience will do on next Friday, it's possible to follow this in a detailed way, or just in a more all over way, or is it necessary at all to follow it?
I think it might be tricky to follow very exactly what's going on, and that's partially that's actually something intentional, because if you if you look at the history of any animal, so you look at, let's say like a dog, and you look at all the ancestors of a dog. Every time you see a jump of generations, the animals still look nearly identical. You need to go through several generations in order to spot some changes that become substantial. And this is something that the algorithm replicates because it's part of the principle. So consecutive musical measures, which is basically the musical organisms that are mutating, they are very often identical or near identical. So consecutive measures, it's very difficult to hear the differences. But if you step back and after a minute or so you say, hey, there is something is just sounding very different than how it started, then you can kind of see this whole arc. So it's this very slow process, this very slow evolution that is taking place. And so it reflects the natural world in a way.
Yeah. Okay, last question. It's a shame you can't come on Friday to the premiere, but on the other hand, this is the perfect reason to make a second performance when everybody is allowed to travel again. Still, we're going to make a recording and we're going to send you the recording. What do you expect from the piece when you listen to it for the first time?
I'm very curious to listen it for the first time. It's of course it's a pity I can't be there. I would love to have travel to Germany for this. Unfortunately, it's just literally impossible at the moment. I think with my type of music, I'm often surprised at the results, and this is part of what keeps me going. I like to construct the situations and then let it become alive when it's in the hands of the performers. And I'm a firm believer that a piece of music only comes to life when performers take the piece and interpret it and put their own their own part of the work there. And I'm just really looking forward to how this is going to be interpreted and how this is going to be performed. It's always a very pleasant surprise for me, and I greatly enjoy it.
Okay, so if anyone wants to listen to the piece earlier than the composer himself, it's a possibility on Friday.
Unfortunately,
in the museum. Unfortunately, but I mean, we will make a rehearsal also in a conference, and we'll play a run through for Gilberto. So actually, he will be listening to it earlier than the rest of the world. But there's this concert on Friday, and yeah, I'm looking very much forward to it. And I'm also very curious about the piece, which is like Weasel, maybe.
Yes, and I hope you all will enjoy. You will enjoy performing. I hope the audience will enjoy listening to it, and will be. I hope it causes some interesting discussions and thoughts about the whole idea behind the piece.
Okay, thanks, Gilberto.
My pleasure. Thanks so much.